Yes, I think I've grown rather cold in recent years. And there's a distinction to be made. I've always had a kind of aggression, or passive aggression, or hidden aggression, increasingly seemingly an overt aggression. I've always had that, but I think that I've had to rely on that so often that it's sort of become more dominant in me than it once was. Like, one thing that I know that I feel loss of is the sort of gentleness that I used to have, and my hesitance that I used to have in terms of my self-reflections. Nowadays, my thoughts are highly constrained because I'm so loaded up, I'm so I've got like a chip on my shoulder, and I'm so loaded up oftentimes that I behave impulsively because it feels as though these sorts of impulsive action-based reflections where I just think, well, how do I get to my solution? How do I get to the next stage of this? How do I break through this wall? How do I do this, do that? It's all doing, So all of my reflections are like concrete things. They're all about concrete things. They're all about solving problems. And there's not as much attention paid to existing in the ambiguity that pervades my existence as a human being. And I've lost a lot of that. I've lost my appreciation for beauty in a lot of ways. I've always had these things. I've always had this kind of aggression. I've always been a little bit antisocial, but a lot of the behaviors that I've found in recent years are sort of false. They're projections of strength in a certain sense. They're projections of like this aggression, and for the purpose of perhaps breaking through some barriers in order to get to my goals. It's like a persona that I've had to put on in order to fight people, and in order to turn myself into someone who is a fighter and who is an action taker. Because the arrogance that I have, I've always had, but the confidence in my conclusions isn't necessarily true to me. I'm more like a person who sees many things. Like I try to look at the many possibilities, and I prefer to exist in that place where I can just where my brain can kind of play. That's how I was. I was a person who sort of just thought about what was, and of course, I try to get better and I try to become more critical. And one of the things that I've never had a good practice of is finding a critical space on my own where other people can help me develop my ideas. Like I've never had something like that because I've been an engineer for all of my adult life. And these, the engineers have goals and objectives. They don't exist always in the space of ideas. Their ideas have to be actionable at the end of the day. And I suppose I took on the engineer, I put on the engineer, and I pursued it because I wanted to actually do good and help people. but like the career itself, as well as the environments that I've subjected myself to, have kind of made me obsessed with outcomes, sometimes at the expense of the validity of the process. How often do I go back nowadays and ask, why am I creating what I am creating? Like, what is this? What's the merit of the research that I'm doing truly? And I see it reflected in other engineers and people who are much smarter than me. They do things because things must be done, and not so much always because there was a reason or a source. Maybe I'm projecting. I mean, I think it's true, at least to say of me, that I do think sometimes because I feel forces acting that must be released, like a pressure on me in order to accomplish something, in order to get to a certain place, or else I'll be eliminated, or else I won't be able to get to where I want to go. So I'm obsessed with the destination always, you know. It all, in some ways, boils down to desperation of one sort or another. And it's not strictly financial desperation, even though that's kind of mirrored the sorts of things that go on inside my head. It's a social. There's also kind of like a constructed social anxiety. Like, I feel like I need to reach a certain plane of stability and accomplishment in order to truly be free. Like, I have to not only have a house, I have to have accomplished all of the basic things. Like, I have to have gotten through all of the schooling from preschool to PhD. Then I have to be capable of getting a job. I have to be competent. I have to be able to spit in the faces of anybody who doubts, or who, not just doubts, that's not as important, but anyone who actively tries to bring me down. I have to be able to treat them with impudence, and there be no repercussions. You know, I have to have this degree of independence, this degree of accomplishment, this degree of comfort, and only then can I truly embody the person that I am. Only then can I be like, you know, the guy that I was when I was younger. Just, you know, I mean, I don't want to literally revert to a child, but I do want to acquire some of that softness and that sort of reflective quality again. Because the kind of ends or objective-oriented thinking that I've done is killing the true curiosity that I have. And it also kills my, I mean, you know, it still exists, I still entertain it in private, but it's like I'm putting aside the real nuances of my social life as well, because it's like acknowledging the complexity of others is like an impedance. It slows me down in my like rabid pursuit of my goals. And I'm fully aware of this, and I have been aware of it for a long time, but even though I'm aware of it, I still say the ends justify the means. I still say that once I get there, it'll be okay. Once I get there, I'll be able to fix all of these things. You know, in that respect, I'm not special. I mean, I know in many ways I'm not, but in that respect, I'm not special. I think that, like, once I've gotten there, then I'll become the right sort of man. I know that there are a lot of people in power these days that think that same way. And, I know I need to find these practices now. there's a matter of positioning, I think, sometimes. I don't know if I'm in a place where I can start. I don't know if it's the right time to start. I also don't know where I would start if I were to.